And welcome to the next issue, episode of the Suppress Herald podcast. And it is really an interesting time here in Maine and United States politics and news and media and propaganda. And let's be sure to really understand this. The local media, the Suppress Herald here in Maine, and all of the newspapers owned by a single entity, the national distrust for local news that's owned by billionaires, is not news. It's propaganda. And it's becoming painfully clearer and clearer and clearer. Even people that don't realize that are starting to wake up. And the reality is, looking at what's headlines in today's news, is really interesting that it's not headlines in the Suppress Herald. I'd say one of the biggest news headlines happening on TV, and of course, you've got the lamestream media trying to deny that it's real and poo-pooing and dismissing it, but it's the declassification. And, we've talked before about here in Maine, real reporting done by the Robinson Report. Steve Robinson, he's also the publisher editor of the Maine Wire, which is a news organization published and supported by the local, call it conservative think tank, and Maine Policy Institute. And here's one of the headlines at the Robinson Report. Okay, again, this is the Robinson report that I do on the Suppress Herald. Tulsi Gabbard details evidence linking Obama to 2016 election conspiracy. This is Russia, 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 always on steroids, always reported by the Suppress Herald ad infinitum, in just basically echoing and repeating what the Washington Compost and New York Times and MSNBC and the wackos there and the Trump deranged syndrome addled news media were doing for 4 years. And actually, it's still happening. And I'm going to share that in a minute. And now, declassified emails and information is coming out that completely destroys the Russia, Russia, Russia narrative. And now we're finding out definitively that all the way to the Obama White House, they colluded together with CIA and the FBI and the Justice Department to undermine first Trump's election and then especially egregious Trump's Trump's actual administration. They attempted a coup using Russia, Russia, Russia. And it's really interesting. Not a single headline after Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, came out and shared. One, there are hundreds of pages of information, and these, call them accusations, and has referred Obama and many of his co-conspirators to the Justice Department, and the Justice Department has put together a team to actually take a close look. Not a single peep in the Suppress Herald. Why? Because that doesn't fit the propaganda narrative, and because for years and years they just completely fell in line and repeated this propaganda trying to take down Trump. It would have major egg on their face if they admitted now that that was all what it really was. This is going to be a really hard push here because people that have been totally propagandized are totally sheep that have been totally taken over. It's mind control practically because they refuse to believe anything aside from the propaganda narrative they've been fed through from local to state to federal media in every aspect. It's been a major propaganda machine to basically control the narrative and control people. It's pretty disgusting. But here you have, the Maine Wire and the Robinson Report talking about Tulsi Gabbard talking about the Chinese grow facility problem. They're also talking about criminal activity going on in Maine. You've got on the Maine Wire, U.S. Marshals catch violent Massachusetts fugitive with miles-long rap sheet in Bangor, Maine. And that's not mentioned in the paper. You've got another one where someone is referred, another criminal in Maine is non-citizen arrested in New Hampshire for illegally voting in U.S. elections. That's never going to be seen in the Suppress Herald. You've got all, sorts of these criminal activities going on, a lot of it with illegal immigrants. And the Suppress Herald doesn't tell you anything about it. They don't want to report on that because it does not fit the narrative. Now let's go to what the Suppress Herald does publish and put in their propaganda sheet. This is a letter to the editor a few days ago, and I kept this for a podcast because this really tells you how the whole system works. This is propaganda at its best. So this is a letter to the editor, and it's talking about, the heading is Letters from an American, Informs and Inspires. Like many people these days, I've been searching for ways to understand and respond to President Trump's attacks on our democracy. Trump hasn't attacked democracy in any way, shape, or form. He won an election. I think that's what democracy is about. And then he's doing what he was elected to do. I think that's what it's about. And when the courts have, even these crazy judges advocating from the bench for their political causes, have held Trump up, he has followed the law, followed the judges. In most of the cases, he's appealed to a higher court and they've been overruled, and Trump wins, and he's able to, one, fire people, he's able to defund some nonsense and crazy thievery going on with our tax dollars. There's no attack on our democracy. And to deal with the knowledge that so many good people are being hurt. You mean like the people being murdered, raped, and robbed by illegal immigrants all over the country on just a scale that is phenomenally harmful to the American people? You mean those are the people being hurt? No. They're talking about freeloaders that aren't getting their free stuff from all of our taxpayer money anymore. But there's another source that's been invaluable too, namely the daily Letters from an American by Heather Cox Richardson, known to many as HCR. Richardson is a professor of history at Boston College. In her letters, she writes from the perspective of a deeply informed teacher and historian. Reading her leaves me better informed about events in Washington and comforted that much of what is happening today mirrors events from our nation's history, events that we survived and often grew stronger from. I recommend subscribing to Letters from an American. Let's go to Letters from an American. That very day, I went over and saw what she'd posted. And it's basically all she does is trumpet all of the garbage coming out of lamestream media and propagandists. She's just again, a mouthpiece for the same garbage being repeated over and over again. So the Suppress Herald refers you with a letter to the editor. They're very creative the way they do it, using letters from their constituents and their subscribers. And so you referred to this writer on Substack, and here's just a clip out of it. Tellingly, Trump compared the Jeffrey Epstein hoax to Russia, Russia, Russia scam itself, a totally fake and made up story used in order to hide crooked Hillary Clinton's big loss in the 2016 presidential election. And that's in parentheses. But of course, the ties between the 2016 Trump campaign and Russian operatives and Russian interference in the 2016 election were not a hoax. They were well established both by special counsel Robert Mueller, a Republican, and by the Republican dominated Senate Intelligence Committee. That is complete and utter bullshit. That is nothing but lies that now Tulsi Gabbard is now coming out with to completely destroy, not just refute, completely destroy. Ever since his campaign's ties to Russia first came to light, Trump has hammered on the idea that the investigation was a hoax, not just to distance himself from potentially illegal behavior, but also because if he could get his followers to reject the truth and accept his lies about what had happened, they would be psychologically committed to him. Although 34 people and 3 companies were indicted or pleaded guilty in the attack on the 2016 election or its cover-up, Trump loyalists believed Trump was a victim of a deep state run by Democrats. We now are finding out the truth. This is the lies and propaganda that have been going on now since 2016, over 8 years of BS lies and propaganda. And here is this mouthpiece referred from a letter to the editor at the Suppress Herald, and it goes around and around and around. Oh, look over there, she said it. Oh, look over there, he said it. Oh, look over there. And it's a circle. You know who started the circle? The FBI and the people that are about to get investigated and potentially indicted for conspiracy, for trying to overthrow, first meddling in an election, and then trying to overthrow the Trump administration of 2017. That's what this is all about. Those people planted these stories. The Steele dossier completely discredited everything about it. They denied it was used for FISA applications. No, we're finding out that it was used. It was created by Hillary Clinton. Now we're finding out that the Russians, this is from information released from those very same intelligence people that these people want to always refer to. Oh, the intelligence said this and that. They did not say that. Obama and Clapper and Brennan and Comey overruled them, did a 180 on what was actually being coming out of the analysts at the CIA and FBI, and turned it into Trump was colluding with Russia, when the reality was they had no evidence of that. What they did have was evidence that Hillary Clinton was a hot mess during the campaign, practically bipolar and on tranquilizers through the campaign. This is evidence that nobody ever saw. But here we have this absolute garbage being cycled through the media. This will then go and be on social media. This will then be highlighted, amplified, repeated, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat again and again and again. You tell a lie often enough, people start to believe it. Well, they're all in. We've got 50, 60, 70 million people that think there was any kind of collusion between Russia and Trump. It's complete, you know, this author cites the Mueller report. Well, the Mueller report came up with nothing. There was nothing, absolutely nothing. And what it didn't come up with was the truth, which was that this whole thing was concocted and it was an operation run out of the Obama White House to prevent Trump from winning, which didn't work. And when he did win, they panicked, and it was designed to try and take him down, and it caused 4 years of mayhem and him defending himself for the entire 4 years of his administration. These people should be and hopefully will be in jail. But just so you understand, this is how propaganda works. Plant a lie. The Steele dossier was the basis of it. The operatives in the Obama administration leaked Steele dossier snippets and the dossier and other information to the Washington Compost, the New York Times, and others. They then amplified it, brought it out, legitimized it, legitimized the whole Steele dossier. The whole time, the Obama administration, the CIA, the FBI knew that it was nothing but garbage. It was garbage created by the Hillary Clinton campaign to take the pressure off her for her server problem with basically her private server hacked by the Russians. And the Russians had a lot of information on Hillary. And according to what was just released, they wanted Hillary to win, not Trump. They weren't helping Trump. They were helping Hillary because she could be blackmailed because they had the dirt on her. This is the truth. But what we have is right down to local, and people have to understand this. This is a massive propaganda machine that's been developed by liberals with Trump derangement syndrome and liberalism as their core that are running the media and doing everything they can to manipulate what people see, hear, and think. And it's worked. The incredible propaganda machine operating in this country has worked incredibly well, and we're seeing it through what we're finding out now. The truth is coming out, and millions of people will not accept it as the truth. And the reason is they are so invested in the stories and the garbage and these narratives that were created by the deep state in Washington, again, to prevent Trump from winning an election, and when that didn't work, from trying to destroy his presidency. This is propaganda. It's all it is. Meanwhile, I mentioned earlier, the main newspapers run by the Suppress Herald don't want to tell you what's really going on. Illegal immigrants committing crimes, that's not the narrative. Illegal immigrants are great. The crimes, the disruption in schools, and the other things that mass migration is causing, and they don't want to let you know the good things that are happening with Trump's administration, incomes going up, a lot of other things. Propaganda is all it is. Remember, politics is local, so is propaganda, and you really have to understand that. This is being done to control people's thinking, control their minds, and it's really worked on tens of millions of Americans, and that's a shame. Hopefully, as the truth continues to come out, people will figure out that they've been manipulated. I hope they're mad, and I hope they push back against everybody that's done this, including right here in Maine, the Suppress Herald. You know who you are. You're liberal, Trump derangement syndrome addled liberals with a cause. You are not news people. You're propagandists, and that's as simple as that. With that, happy days on the Suppress Herald podcast. Hope everybody is starting to get this message. Spread the word, share the podcast, share my channel, and hopefully we can turn this thing around.